Revealed. My terrifying night shift at Accursed Lodge, 5 sinister secrets exposed in the shadows. The Maplewood Lodge stood on the brink of despair, a shell of its former glory. Malik knew he shouldn't be there. It was a job, but it felt like stepping into a mausoleum. Every night, the shadows thickened, whispering secrets he wasn't meant to hear. The air hung heavy, thick with sorrow as he walked the lonesome halls. The creaks and groans of the aging building kept him company, sending icy tendrils of dread crawling down his spine. Who could ever feel safe here? He clutched the keys to the lodge in a cold sweat, heart racing with every flickering light and every unsettling sound that echoed around him. One particularly eerie shift. Under the dim glow of a dying bulb in the lobby, he stumbled upon an old leather-bound guest book, shoved aside like an unwanted child. Dust covered the edges, as if time dared not touch it. Malik flipped the pages with trembling hands, the entries sending chills rippling down his spine like fingers tracing bones. Last words of visitors turned to ghostly echoes, tales of terror, hidden in the lodge's walls. Nightmares, faces twisted in agony, memories of laughter drowned by sorrow. Each sentence weighed heavier than the last. Darkness doesn't just creep. It consumes and suffocates, Malik thought, heart hammering. Before he could settle into the dread, an unsettling presence enveloped him, urging him deeper. He could feel the walls close in. The old door stood half-hidden by dusty curtains like a sentry guarding secrets. He hesitated, breath quickening, but the unbearable pull of curiosity shoved him forward. Dust erupted into the air as he pushed the door aside. Inside, a display of lost memories awaited, belongings neatly arranged, but set against an overwhelming sadness that made his heart ache. A child's teddy bear, matted and forlorn, a rusted keychain, a photograph of a family, frozen in smiles yet overshadowed by a darkness unleashed. Panic clawed at his chest. No one wanted the truth. They wanted to forget. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. He slammed the door shut, breath hitching in his throat. But the weight of the community's silence bore down heavily. Neighbors who glanced away in conversation, tired eyes waving off his inquiries. They knew more than they let on. Red flags buried under friendly banter. He feared coming to grips with the truths lurking beneath the surface. Betrayal intertwined with every glimmer of kindness he once trusted as genuine. As shadows loomed closer, Malik felt instinct gnawing at his gut. A figure brushed past outside the lodge late one night, an unkempt stranger with wild eyes, mouth moving in frantic whispers. Don't let the darkness reach her. The warning seized him. Panic surged. Could they already be hunting his daughter? Terror clawed at his insides, and he raced home, knowing he was losing time. He must confront this haunting legacy before they swallowed her whole. But had the lodge already laid claim to the one thing he held dear? The question loomed heavier than the night itself, a chilling reminder that the darkness was waking. Malik burst through the front door, desperation painted on his face. The chill of the night hung in the air around him, heavy and suffocating. Each step felt leaden as he raced to his daughter's room. The house, usually a refuge, now felt like a cage. Every creak and groan of the old wood was magnified in his frenzied mind. Zara, he called, panic edging into his voice. Silence hung thick, too thick, until it felt like a living, breathing entity. Heart hammering, he yanked her bedroom door open. The room was dark, curtains drawn tight. A flash of fear coursed through him as he scanned the space. Her bed was unmade, the covers twisted like a serpent. Panic morphed into dread. Where was she? This wasn't like her. He turned, ready to search the rest of the house when he spotted a faint glow emanating from the bathroom. Malik took a cautious step forward. Something inside him screamed not to go, But it wasn't just about him anymore. It was Zara. He pushed the bathroom door open, and the chill from inside sent a shiver down his spine. The air felt electric, vibrating with an unspoken tension. The light flickered. A low hum echoed, something almost musical yet grotesque at the same time. "Zara?" he called again, his voice trembling. There was no answer, just the echoing hum growing louder, wrapping around him like an embrace he didn't want. He stepped inside, the door creaking ominously behind him. The sound of running water filled the space, soft yet urgent. His heart squeezed as he rounded the corner. The tub was full, water swirling with dark shadows that seemed to move on their own. There, floating at the surface, was a familiar object, a small rubber duck, bright and welcoming against the sinister backdrop. Fraying memories of bathtime laughter flooded his mind. But this wasn't right. "Zara." His voice was now a frantic whisper. "Where are you?" In that moment, a reflection caught his eye in the tarnished mirror. He turned, but nothing was there. Just the chill of the room swept around his ankles and through his gut. But the hum, it grew louder, almost like a chant, beckoning him closer. Then, from beyond the glass, he saw her, a ghostly figure of Zara, her small face pale and drawn, staring back at him from some other realm. Her mouth moved, but no sound escaped. Panic churned in his chest. He stepped closer, heart racing as he tried to bridge the distance. "Zara." In a flash, the vision distorted, her eyes widening in terror as the water in the tub erupted in a whirlpool of shadows. The reflection rippled violently, twisting her features into something unrecognizable. Malik stumbled back, terror seizing him. The darkness was manifesting, born from the lodge that haunted his thoughts. He felt it tug at his very essence, pulling him toward the swirling chaos. This wasn't just a warning anymore. It was reality closing in like a vice around them both. He had to act. But as he reached for his phone, the lights flickered again, plunging the room into cold, suffocating darkness. The hum turned into a shriek that assaulted his ears, drowning out everything. With trembling hands, he felt his way back to the door, but a force pushed against him. "Help!" a faint whisper echoed, coming from the swirling darkness. The cry was unmistakably Zara's, pulling him back in. "Zara!" he screamed, panic igniting as he clawed at the door. The shadows whispered promises of despair, the hum changing its tone, suffocating his cries. Would he lose her to the shadows? In that moment, his thoughts spiraled, it all centered around one horrifying realization. What if the lodge wasn't just a mere building, but something alive, actively hunting his deepest fear, his child? As the shadows clawed at him, Malik knew he had to confront the terror head-on. But would the lodge allow him to reclaim what it had claimed? The chilling quiet that followed was only broken by Zara's soft cry echoing in his ears. "Daddy? Please." But would he find her in time? Or would the darkness consume her forever? As Malik's world shrank into this singular moment, he heard a door, not far behind him, creak open. Malik's heart raced as the creaking door filled the silence, a hollow sound that echoed through the dark bathroom. He could feel an insistent pull, a compulsion to turn and look. But fear rooted him in place. What lurked behind him? He squeezed his eyes shut, willing the world to change, then opened them again to face the suffocating darkness. "Zara!" he cried again, his voice cracking. The shadows seemed to shimmer around him, alive with malice. He could almost sense the lodge's pulse, beating in time with the thrumming hum that now felt like it was coming from inside his skull. The door creaked open wider, and cold air sliced through the darkness, carrying a scent that was familiar yet twisted, a mix of old wood and something sharp, like rust. "Zara!" Panic surged as he stepped back from the sound, his hands searching for something solid, anything to anchor him against the rising tide of fear. He was no longer just afraid, he was unraveling. The shadows coiled tighter, slicing through his resolve. He could hear whispers now, dark and insistent. Help! It was Zara's voice, haunting and distant, as if she were trapped in a deep well, calling out for a savior who couldn't reach her. "Where are you?" Malik gasped. The shadows shifted, twisting like they were alive, almost mocking him. When he finally turned, ready to face whatever had opened the door, he was met with a figure shrouded in darkness. It was a silhouette, faceless but there, blocking the light that flickered from the bathroom bulb. Desperation clawed at his throat. Zara? The figure took a step forward, and Malik's breath caught. The familiar sound of water swirling in the tub echoed ominously. In a flash, illusions of his little girl's laughter and their shared moments at the lake played like a reel in his mind. He had failed her long before this dark night. Zara. He yelled again, the word tearing from his chest. But the figure only moved closer, revealing itself just a bit more. It was as if a thick mist swirled around it, cloaking details that defied comprehension. A low, guttural growl emanated from the shadows, making his skin crawl. Malik's instinct urged him to flee, but as he turned, the bathroom door slammed shut with a thunderous bang. The sound echoed like a death knell, sealing his fate. For a fleeting moment, he felt a surge of hope. Maybe he could face whatever this was, but as the reality of his confinement sank in, despair clawed at his gut. "I won't leave you," he shouted, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "What do you want?" The air dropped to a bone-chilling cold, and the figure, now looming almost within arm's reach, began to vibrate. Words danced around him, shadows licked at his feet, and the lines between reality and nightmare blurred. He could see now. The figure was shifting, resembling Zara, yet it wasn't her. "Help!" It hissed again, but it had become a mockery of her sweet voice, twisted with anguish and despair. Malik clutched at his temples, his heart pounding like a war drum. This was worse than the lodge's broken promises. It was shaping his worst nightmare. A moment of clarity snapped through the fog of fear. He had to face the truth: the lodge was feeding on his despair, on his love for his daughter. The shadows were the embodiment of his fears, twisted reflections of his failures and regrets. He wouldn't let them win. "I'm coming for you, Zara," he roared, his voice cutting through the darkness. With raw determination, he lunged at the figure, but the shadows spiraled in protest. He was swallowed in darkness, the cold tightening like a vice around him. Just when he thought he'd been consumed completely, the air shifted. The familiar warmth of a small hand brushed against his. Daddy, was it real? He could almost feel her. Panic twisted into hope, yet doubt lingered like smoke. If that voice was truly Zara, could he bring her back from this vortex of terror? And then he heard it, footsteps, slow and heavy, echoing outside the bathroom door. The unmistakable sound of something terrible approaching. Would he have the courage to face whatever lay ahead? Or was this the end of his search for his little girl? Malik shook off the icy grip of despair, pushing forward through the swirling dark. Each movement felt heavier, as if the air itself was pulling him back. "Zara," he shouted again, desperation creeping into his voice. The darkness throbbed in rhythm with his heartbeat, a sinister melody that echoed with promise and threat. The whispers returned, now louder, more insistent. "Help, Daddy!" They wrapped around him like chains. Each syllable twisted, distorting the sweetness of her voice into a haunting plea that tugged at the very fabric of his soul. He stumbled forward, chasing the sound, reaching out as if he could grasp onto reality and pull it closer. But the shadows danced away from him, retreating as the cold snap of air passed him, revealing a wall of darkness that seemed to pulsate with a life of its own. The silhouette loomed closer, a grotesque parody of the daughter he desperately sought. Then suddenly, the echoes of footsteps turned into a cacophony. Heavy boots thudded against the wooden floor outside the locked door. Malik pivoted, heart pounding. Who was out there? Some kind of savior or something worse? "Help!" he yelled toward the door, his voice breaking. "I'm in here. Please." The footsteps stopped abruptly. A silence filled the air, thick and palpable. It wrapped around him, thickening the shadows and amplifying his dread. An unseen presence pressed against the door as if it had been holding its breath, waiting for him to reveal himself. Would he even want help if it came with pain? The figure shifted again, whispering sweetly, "Help," but this time it was laced with something darker. It was a taunt, Malik felt bile rise in his throat. This wasn't his daughter, this was a cruel mimicry. An echo of his deepest fears, with a sudden, desperate clarity. He clenched his fists. "You don't own me," he roared, defiance emerging like a jagged shard of glass amidst the fog of despair. "Zara needs me." The shadows recoiled, a shudder rippling through them as if his words struck a nerve. They flickered, the figure wavering like the flame of a candle on the verge of snuffing out. His heart raced, the temperature plummeting, teeth chattering as he fought to steady himself against the freezing fingers of panic. "Daddy," came the voice again, clearer this time, more potent but surrounded by the acrid taste of anguish. Could have been an illusion, a trick of the dark, but he felt the urge to believe. Malik took a step, then another. He could almost see her small figure through the curtain of shadows, a flicker of hope at the end of an impossibly long tunnel. The door creaked behind him, the last vestiges of silence shattered. It swung slowly open, revealing blackness so deep it felt like staring into the void itself. He hesitated, grappling between the beckoning darkness and the promise of Zara. Suddenly, the floorboards groaned under the weight of something unseen. The whispers escalated into frantic cries, voices barreling from the shadows, accusations and fears merging into a deafening roar. "You left us. You failed her." Malik staggered back, his mind buzzing like a hive of hornets. The painful truth clawed at him, ripping open buried guilt. Shadows swirled angrily, and with each shift of darkness, a memory surfaced, a smiling daughter holding his hand, laughter swelling between them. And then, the tragedy, her absence, his flawed attention. "Zara," he cried. This time, the only answer was the echo of his voice. His reflection in the shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, haunting reminders of his failures. In a moment of raw clarity, a choice unfolded in front of him. Would he turn back to the safety of the unknown or plunge deeper into the fury of his darkest nightmare to save his daughter? As Malik teetered on the edge of despair and determination, the ground trembled beneath him, sending shockwaves through the very core of the lodge. Felt alive, angry with him. With a new resolve, he lunged into the darkness, feeling the shadows claw at him, dragging him down. But the warmth of a tiny hand reached out once more, pulling him back from the abyss. Daddy, was this a final chance or a cruel trick? He had to know. He had to find out before it was too late. Would he be able to reach Zara, or were the shadows already claiming his soul? Malik plunged into the darkness, and it enveloped him like a thick fog. Fear clawed at his throat, making it hard to breathe. Shadows slithered around him, each whisper echoing his name, twisting into mockery. Daddy, the word cut through, a sharp knife of nostalgia mixed with dread. The warmth he felt, the familiar touch. Was it real or another lie the darkness spun? He focused, straining to keep his bearings. The blackness seemed to pulse with intent, alive and hungry, as if it were watching, waiting for him to falter. Each step echoed in a symphony of silence, the shadows shifting and swirling in a grotesque dance that churned his stomach. "Zara," he shouted again, desperate. Would she hear him? Would she answer back? "Help me," that same haunting voice returned, laced with desperation. This time, it was accompanied by a giggle, unsettling yet achingly familiar. His heart quickened. Was that even her laughter? Or was it a sick twist by whatever malevolence had claimed the lodge? Suddenly, the floor dipped beneath him. Malik felt gravity pull him down as if the lodge itself conspired against him. He stumbled, arms flailing, as he found himself tumbling into a pit of icy darkness. His palms scraped against wood, nails biting into the splinters, but it caught him, a sudden jolt causing his breath to hitch. The floor beneath him solidified into a small platform, surrounded by the oppressive dark. Malik's pulse roared in his ears. He felt exposed, trapped in a bubble of nothingness while shadows whispered sweetly around him. The voices carried a sinister intonation, an insistent draw toward memories he wished to forget. "Why did you leave us, Daddy?" The shadows taunted in unison. Muffled laughter echoed through the abyss, mingling with cries of despair. He shook his head vigorously, as if by denial alone he could make it stop. "No, I didn't leave you. I liar." The voices shrieked, a cacophony that sent vibrations coursing through his bones. "You left her." As memories rushed in, the figures of his past emerged from the dark. A twisted version of Zara reached a fragile hand, covered in shadows and mischief. The air shifted, thickening like tar. The playful girl he knew was replaced with a distorted imitation, eyes flashing like cold steel. "Zara," he yelled into the void. "You have to fight. I'm here." Her figure flickered, hesitant, the darkness tugging at the edges of her reality. "Daddy," the plea sounded weak, thin as she shimmered like a candle struggling against the encroaching night. "Stay with me, please." The words tumbled out, desperation clawing at him. The shadows shrieked louder, a storm of anguished cries that threatened to tear him apart. They surged forward, wrapping around him, tightening like a vice, stealing his breath. "Pull back. Fight it," he shouted, wishing he could physically reach out. But he was anchored in place, as if the shadows had secured him firmly to the platform. The dim light around Zara flickered implausibly brighter, illuminating her features for an ephemeral moment. Her eyes sparkled with fear and determination. "I want to come home then." Just as quickly, the light dimmed, and a shadowed hand reached out to snatch Zara away. Malik screamed, panic rising as he lunged only to find himself stopped by the unseen bonds that held him tight. "Daddy!" Zara cried out, her voice cracking, tears held back in muffled sobs. In that moment, as he struggled against the darkness, a horrifying realization settled within him. It wasn't just shadows that threatened to claim him. This was a war of wills. He had to confront this nightmare, to break free from the chains of guilt and despair. But the shadows laughed, a chilling, hollow sound. "You cannot save her, Malik. You cannot even save yourself." Suddenly, a bright flash erupted from the pit. Malik shielded his eyes, heart racing, as something ancient and powerful pierced through the darkness. What was it? A chance? A trap? He had to decide quickly. Would this save his daughter or doom them both? As the shadows recoiled in fear, he reached trembling hands toward the incandescent light. Would he step into salvation or oblivion? The answer loomed just beyond his grasp. The light pulsed with an intensity that seemed to vibrate with life. Malik's pulse matched its rhythm, urgency surging through him. This was not just illumination but a beacon, a shred of hope in the oppressive dark. He couldn't think, couldn't let fear take root. He lunged forward, diving toward the blinding radiance. As he touched the light, it enveloped him, washing over his body like a flood of electricity. In that moment, he felt weightless, unshackled from the tight grip of despair. But as quickly as it embraced him, it hissed and twisted like a serpent, coiling around him, pushing back. Shadows shrieked in protest, a symphony of agony that burned his ears. Malik blinked, his vision clearing. The darkness faded slightly, revealing a distorted landscape where walls bent and twisted in on themselves, like the insides of a funhouse. The air was thick with an acrid stench, reminiscent of burnt wood and decay. Zara's cries echoed, now mingled with terrified laughter, the line between panic and insanity blurring entirely. "Zara, I'm here," he shouted, voice cracking under the pressure of fear. He felt the darkness draw closer, eager to reclaim him. Panic surged through him again. He rushed toward the faltering light, finding that it led to a door shimmering at the far end of the warped hall. It seemed to pulse, beckoning him closer, yet surrounded by shadows that writhed and whispered. "Come to me," the shadows urged, their voices sultry, seductive. "Why would you choose a darkened door over loving arms?" Malik hesitated, his heart racing. What choice lay before him? A chance to save his daughter flickered like fire in his chest, but the whispers tugged at his thoughts. "You're a failure. You'll never get her back." "Shut up," he screamed, shaking his head. The horror clung to his skin, and he could feel it seeping into his veins. He took a step toward the door, the buzzing light urging him to move faster. "Daddy!" Zara's voice cut through the chaos. It had shifted, a distance echoing in her plea. He could barely see her illuminated form, flickering like a half-remembered dream. Without a moment to lose, Malik sprinted toward the door, a surge of adrenaline propelling him forward. The shadows lashed out, snatching at his ankles, trying to pull him back into their dark embrace. He stumbled but lunged again, desperately reaching for the handle of the door, a mere few feet away. The shadow surged in a final attempt to claim him, swirling around his waist, squeezing tight. Malik gasped, feeling the life drain as he gripped the handle with all the strength he had left. "Let her go!" he roared, throwing himself against the door in one last desperate bid for freedom. The handle clicked, the door creaked open blindingly bright, and Malik staggered through, crashing into the unknown. Suddenly, cool air rushed past him. He rolled, propelled into a wide space that felt like open sky, the darkness receding into a malicious whisper. Heart hammering, he sat up, eyes darting around. He was in a dimly lit room, one that was alarmingly familiar. The Lodge's living area. But everything was wrong. The walls were splattered with shadows, pulsating rhythmically, and the air tasted metallic. Before he could gather his thoughts, he heard it again, the giggles, now closer. And there, standing right before him, was Zara. But her eyes were dark pools of horror. "Daddy, you came back," she said, her voice a twisted echo of innocence. But the shadows weren't done. They flickered at the corners of his vision, whispering secrets. Each hiss sent waves of dread through him. He had escaped their grasp, but what was this new reality? Turning back to his daughter, Malik noticed shadows creeping behind her, weaving around her body like smoke. He could feel dread wrapping around him again. "Zara, we need to," but before he could finish, she looked at him with a chilling smile, and the shadows surged forward, swallowing her in an instant. "No!" he screamed, lunging toward her. But it was too late. The darkness devoured her, and Malik realized the true horror. In this lodge of torment, the fight was far from over. A chilling truth sank heavily in his chest. He might not only have to rescue his daughter, he had to confront something much darker lurking in the shadows. What had he really unleashed? He felt cold dread creeping back as the air thickened. Would the next step pull him deeper into this nightmare? Or into something worse? As the laughter swelled around him again, he knew he needed an answer fast. But what was waiting for him now? Malik stumbled forward into the dimly lit room, breathless and panicked. The last sound of Zara's laughter echoed in his mind, twisting deeper into his gut like a dagger. The shadows shift around him, whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. Every flicker against the walls felt like a cold hand brushing his skin, and he shivered. "Zara!" he cried again, a weak plea, knowing he might not get a response. The silence that followed was suffocating, pregnant with the tension of unspoken terror. As he crept toward the familiar brown couch, he caught sight of something glimmering on the ground, half hidden beneath a layer of damp leaves. It was a small toy, a faded, weathered bunny Zara always carried. It looked like it had been used for a chew toy, the once fluffy ears frayed and drenched in shadowy stains. Malik's heart sank. "Where are you?" His voice faltered, a whisper nearly swallowed by the darkness. The air grew thick, oppressive, and the metallic taste turned bitter in his mouth. A distant sound reached Malik's ears, a soft scraping, like nails on wood. He froze, straining to listen. The laughter returned nearer now, more aggressive. The shadows danced mischievously at the edges of his vision, swaying and curling like smoke. "Zara?" Desperation seeped into every syllable. Two shadows sprang forward from the corners of the room, twisting and writhing, taking form as the monstrous visages of long-forgotten nightmares. Malik felt his body stiffen, panic clawing at his throat. They were watching him, grinning with grotesque pleasure. "Come, Daddy," one of the figures mocked, its voice a sinister echo of Zara's sweet tone. "We've been waiting for you." Malik's instincts kicked in, and he dashed toward the hallway, the shadows hot on his heels. The door stood ajar. You could feel a pulse from within, a chaotic beat that thrummed with dread. He hesitated for a breath, his mind racing. Would it lead him to Zara, or further into their trap? A shriek of laughter rang out, bright and jagged. They were getting closer, hungry for his fear. He bolted through the door. The light stung his eyes as he crashed into a new realm. This one a cracked landscape filled with frosted whispers. Trees bent low, their leaves distorted visages spiraling in peculiar directions. Shadows darted in and out, teasing and taunting, urging him to surrender. He didn't stop but pressed on, driven by despair. Zara, he cried again, voice hoarse. None of it made sense. Where was he? As he rounded a sharp bend, he saw something someone standing in the distance. The figure was barely visible, luminous against the dusk, and his heart raced at the thought it might be his daughter. He sprinted toward the silhouette, freedom clawing for him. Zara, he shouted again, and the figure turned. But it wasn't her face he found that a ghastly woman with hollow eyes stared back. Her mouth stretched into a grin that revealed rows of sharp teeth. The shadows cascaded behind her, writhing and hissing. You're too late, Malik, she cooed, her voice a seductive whisper. She's ours now. The shadows surged, and with a dreadful clarity, Malik understood they weren't just coming for him. They were here to claim Zara. Horrified yet driven, he forced himself to move, tearing through the echoes of her laughter, pushing through the haze of despair. Heavy footsteps trailed behind him, growing louder, matched only by his frantic heartbeat. But what awaited him at the end of this insane chase? Would he find her? Would he face something even worse than the shadows that haunted him? In a last-ditch effort, he reached for hope. The thought of Zara lit an ember in his chest. But at what cost? What would he have to sacrifice to pull her from this dark abyss? As the shadows lunged again, a chill skated along his spine. Was this nightmare only just beginning? Would he be brave enough to plunge deeper? He knew, one way or another, they left no exit. Malik sprinted deeper into the fog, fear coiling tightly around his chest. He could feel the shadows closing in, hungry for his despair. The twisted trees seemed to lean closer, their branches like skeletal arms reaching for him, willing him to succumb to the darkness. Each gasping breath felt more shallow, his heart pounding louder than ever. A sudden chill swept through the air, and he stumbled. Malik glanced over his shoulder, catching a glimpse of those nightmarish figures. They were closer now, so close he could hear their whispers, a chilling symphony that merged his name with that of Zara's. Panic ignited his muscles. He had to move. Zara, he called, a frantic sound that ricocheted around him, swallowed whole by the looming shadows. He pressed on, his feet pounding against the leaf-strewn ground. With every step, the fading light screamed to him, offering a false sense of security. Through the haze, another figure flickered into view. This time it wasn't ghastly or monstrous. A small child, her hair like spun gold even from afar, he recognized her. Zara. His heart soared at the sight, surpassing the gripped terror. Daddy! Her voice was sweet, drifting through the twisted branches like a melody. But even as he darted forward, a cold whisper from deep within warned him. Zara, watch out! He shouted. But it was too late. The shadows struck first, wrapping around his little girl like a vice. Her eyes widened in shock, fear staining her innocence. Help! She screamed, the sound slicing through Malik like a knife. He lunged, reaching out with everything he had, the trembling edges of his sanity threatening to snap. The moment he touched her, an electric jolt coursed through the air, and a dark figure appeared beside Zara, its maw stretching wide with glee. Leave her alone! Malik's voice split the air, raw with grief and anger. The shadows coiled tighter, words mixing with the haunting laughter that erupted around him. The figure loomed, its long fingers elongating menacingly toward him. Join us, Daddy, it hissed, its breath a putrid mix of rot and decay. She's already ours. Malik felt himself falter. A part of him wanted to shrink back, to step away from the horror of it all. But Zara's terrified gaze pierced through whatever darkness threatened to claim him. I will not, he screamed, and his voice rang out like thunder. He charged forward, pushing against the blackness that sought to envelop him. In that instant, Something within him snapped. The world around him quaked, and the shadows recoiled. Malik felt a surge of power rising inside him, his need to protect, to fight, igniting a fire in his belly. With a roar, he charged, slicing through the thick shadows with newfound strength. The shadows writhed, howling in protest. "You will regret this." The anguish poured from the creatures, a collective wail that echoed around him, and Malik pressed on. Finally, he reached Zara. His touch ignited warmth against the cold tendrils wrapping around her, pushing them back inch by torturous inch. With her free now, hope surged anew. He grasped her small hand tightly. "Run!" Malik shouted, pulling her close as they turned to escape. But the shadows were relentless, swirling rapidly, filling the air with an ominous hum that felt like a heartbeat. They wouldn't allow their prey to escape so easily. As they sprinted forward, Malik looked back. The sinister woman stood at the edge of the forest, a wicked grin plastered across her face. "This isn't over, Malik," she called, her voice dripping with malice. The ground beneath them started to shake, dark veins creeping through the dirt, threatening to split the earth. Malik could feel the pulsing dread radiating from the shadows, and terror tightened its grip on his spine. "Keep running. We'll find a way out," he urged Zara, though the fear gnawed at the edges of his heart. But as they disappeared into the deeper parts of the forest, an echo of laughter followed, sending shivers skimming down their bodies. Malik's heart raced. Would they truly escape? Or were they simply running toward another trap, deeper, into the labyrinth of nightmares? What awaited them around the next bend? Would they find sanctuary or descend into the clutches of their darkness? He knew they had to hurry. Time was slipping away. The shadows watched, hungry and eager, creeping closer with each fleeting moment. What would Malik have to confront next to save his daughter? Each stride felt heavier as Malik and Zara plunged deeper into the gnarled trees. The air thickened, making it hard to breathe, cold as ice suddenly clinging to their skin. Malik's heart raced, pumping fuel into his fear. He scanned their surroundings, knowing they needed to find shelter, something to block out the nightmarish pursuers. "Daddy, I'm scared." Zara's voice trembled, cutting through the suffocating silence. It was just a word, but it sliced through Malik's resolve, igniting a deeper terror. He could feel the shadows crawling down his spine. Every brush of the wind seemed to whisper their doom. "Stay close to me, Zara. Just a little further," he coaxed, but doubt seeped into his words. Malik spotted a dilapidated cabin nestled between two looming oaks, their twisted roots grasping like hands clutching for support. The wooden structure was dark and forbidding, but it was a desperate gamble. "Over there." He pointed, and they raced to the door, throwing it open and plunging inside. The cabin reeked of mold and something more sinister, like damp earth and rotting wood, a scent wrestling with his sanity. Dust motes danced in their breath, illuminated by pale moonlight seeping through the cracked windows. Shadows stretched and twisted in the corners, merging with the silence that felt alive. "Lock it," Zara urged, her voice barely above a whisper. Classic instinct, one he had conditioned her to rely on whenever danger lurked. Malik bolted the door, the click sounding like a death knell in the overwhelming stillness. "Do you think they know where we are?" Zara asked, eyes wide with unshed tears, her small frame trembling beside him. "They can't," Malik assured, though part of him felt the lie constricting his throat. The shadows outside passed their enemy status and crossed into a realm of relentless hunters. Their whispers curled and slithered around the cabin, and he shivered, tapping into what little strength he had left. "Maybe if we stay quiet," he suggested, trailing off as a low, echoing thud reverberated against the door. The shadows outside weren't giving up. He felt it, their hunger, their desire to invade, to claim Zara. A growl rumbled like thunder, deep and menacing, vibrating the walls. Malik pressed his back against the door, the wood rattling as if it might shatter under the weight of their collective rage. "Zara, listen," before he could finish. The windows shattered, a wave of darkness swarming inside, tendrils slithering like snakes seeking prey. Malik grabbed Zara, pulling her close, clenching his teeth against the horror as the shadows wrapped around him, squeezing his breath away. "Join us," came the hissing chorus, voices familiar and twisted. They lured him, calling for surrender with names that meant love, friends, family. It confused him, tugging at memories buried under fear. "Fight it," Malik gasped, shaking his head, his fingertips digging into the cold skin of Zara's arm. The darkness thrummed dangerously close. It enveloped them, swallowing their screams, pulling them toward despair. A thought blazed. Desperation breeds strength. With sheer will, Malik flung Zara toward a corner, then turned, bringing his fists down on the darkness that sought to consume them. The shadow writhed as if stung. The air vibrated with a cacophony of shrieks and growls. Zara's eyes widened, absorbing every moment of fear and defiance. "Stay back, you monsters!" Malik shouted, turning the fear inside him into fuel. And in that moment, something shattered the suffocating grip of the shadows. A snap that echoed in the night like a fractured promise. "Keep fighting, baby," he urged, his heart racing as he darted toward the door. But as he flung himself against the wooden barrier, a chilling truth froze him in place. There inside, Zara whispered, her voice trembling in that instant. The shadows surged forward, invading their safe haven with an insatiable hunger. Malik's mind faltered. Where was the escape? How could he save her now? Suddenly, there was a loud crash from above, and something not of this world. Dark figure loomed, its face mottled in shadow and anger. It pointed, whispering curses that reverberated in the hollow cabin. This is just the beginning. Malik, what did that mean? He felt the walls close in, and as a scream choked his throat, terror swallowed him whole. What lay beyond their fight? Was the nightmare over? Or had they only scratched the surface of a darkness intent on consuming everything they loved? Malik's heart raced as the shadows crawled toward him, their whispers growing louder, a maddening symphony of dread. The dark figure loomed above, its features twisting in the dim light, haunting eyes locking onto his. Fear burst through Malik like fire in his veins, igniting sheer determination within him. "Zara, hold my hand," he shouted, pulling his daughter closer. She gripped his fingers tightly, her small hand trembling against his palm, fueling his resolve. Together, they would confront this darkness. "Your nightmares won't claim us," Malik shouted, his voice ringing with defiance. The darkness hissed, swirling, as if the words themselves stung them. Malik surged forward, drawing upon every ounce of strength he had. He would not be a victim. Not today. The shadowy figure let out a roar that resonated through the very bones of the cabin, the fury of lost souls echoing in its wake. The dust swirled with the force of its rage, a living thing, but Malik could feel the warmth from Zara pushing back against the cold. "Zara," he shouted again, finding loopholes of clarity through the chaos. "We have to fight back." He turned swiftly, searching for anything to battle with, his eyes darting among the wreckage of the cabin. A rusted pipe lay at his feet, relic of former strength. He snatched it up, feeling it weighty in his grip. With fierce conviction, Malik swung the pipe, striking the shadows that lunged toward them. Each blow scattered them momentarily, fracturing their howls into a chorus of shrieks that clawed at the air. The shadows didn't retreat easily. They swarmed back, reforming. But with each swing, Malik felt the overwhelming darkness recede just a little more. It was enough to ignite hope. "Keep pushing, baby. You're so brave. Can you show them?" he encouraged Zara, watching her eyes flicker with determination. "Together," she shouted, and the word rang through the cabin as if it summoned both their spirits like a talisman. With a deep breath, Malik turned to the figure, defiance simmering. "You're not my nightmares. You're only shadows." He charged forward again, swinging the pipe. The darkness writhed and shrieked in agony, retreating a few steps. But it wasn't enough. The figure screeched, elongating, and Malik felt the weight of despair push back against him. "Fight," he growled, a primal roar tumbling from his lips. "Help me, Daddy," Zara cried, and the sound cut through the fear like a beacon. He couldn't falter now. Focusing, Malik felt the shadows twisting deeper, pulling apart like a fog scattering under the sun. You want us? Then face us. He bellowed one last time before plunging into the fray, the pipe glimmering like an extension of himself, with a final downward thrust. Malik felt immense power ricochet from the impact, as if he had struck against steel. The shadows imploded into a burst of shimmers. A moment of blinding light washing over the cabin's silence fell. Malik staggered back, heart pounding in his ears. He glanced to Zara, who stood unsteadily, eyes wide and brimming with tears. They were still together. They had pushed back the shadows, at least momentarily. "Daddy?" Zara whispered, her voice trembling. Malik knelt down, capturing her in a hug. "I'm here. I'm always here." He felt her small frame shake as she sobbed softly into his shoulder, the reality of fear gradually melting away. But then that voice returned. The haunting whisper echoed through the air, laced with spiteful laughter. "You think this is over?" Malik winced, feeling the shadows gathering at the edges once more. "No," he shouted, standing once more, the pipe still sturdy in his grip. "We're not going anywhere." As the thin darkness lunged for them again, Malik steeled himself. Would this moment define his daughter's fate? There would be no retreat. "Zara, get ready," he shouted. "You have to believe we can overpower them together." He felt the weight of her little hand slip back into his as they faced the looming shadows, an unexpected strength glimmering between them. With that belief anchoring him firmly, Malik surged forward. They would fight. Together. They would not let the darkness claim any piece of them in this battle. The shadows writhed closer, but this time a fierce light flared in Malik's heart. He grasped the pipe with renewed vigor, moved with purpose, and shouted with everything he had. Together, Malik and Zara screamed in unison, the words erupting from their lips, filling the cabin with an unrelenting force. As they struck outward once more, the shadows recoiled, halting with uncertainty. Malik's fear meltdown smashed against the resistance. They were surrounding the void itself. With every blow, every scream of unified determination, waves of light washed through the darkness until finally, with one final swing, the figures crumbled, dissolving into wisps of smoke. The air grew still, the silhouettes dispersing into nothingness. Breathy silence lingered, taut with disbelief. Caught in a cocoon of hope and relief, Malik fell to his knees, Zara clinging to him desperately, the tremors of fear finally subsiding. They were free. "Did we do it?" she asked, voice shaking slightly. "We did, baby. We're free of them," he whispered, pulling her close as the sun began to rise beyond the trees, painting the sky with soft hues of dawn, a fresh start as warmth embraced them. Malik held her tightly, heart full, fear dissipating with each pulse of light. Maybe they could leave Maplewood Lodge for good. Maybe the shadows were finally gone. But he knew their journey didn't end here. They would carry the strength within. Together, they had faced the darkness, and the love they shared would always be their greatest shield. "Let us go home," he said softly, finally aware that the fight may linger but hope would shine brighter than ever. Zara nodded. Together, with new courage igniting within, they stepped away from the haunted shadows of the lodge, their bond radiating against the remnants of despair, finally embarking on a brighter path ahead. Hey, if you enjoyed this conclusion, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on more exclusive stories like this. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help the channel grow. Also, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about where Malik and Zara's journey might lead next. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing finale. Your support means everything.